now you can actually produce a movie or you can show your idea. So that's actually amazing. Now is the best time to actually start a film. You can kind of skip like all of those difficult steps that was there before to learn, to spend so many years to learn a software. Like it's even really tough to think like what's gonna be in like 3 years, because since now I'm working on those tools, sometimes you're just even asking like what's gonna be in next 3 months, not 3 years. You know, that when you see what you already have in the hands, that's like not publicly out yet. And then you're thinking like, oh, okay, so now on this one, and I don't want to even think what's gonna be in 3 years. I'm wondering like if in 3 months, like what people's gonna do. And then what's super interesting is like when you release like those things, like to see what the other people's do, right? That they show their creativity and how they use the tools. That's amazing. You see how many people you helped with to actually get into when they can start social media, for example, and start doing their own small series, podcast, and suddenly everything looks kind of professional. And that's amazing to see how people are using that.
Before we dive into today's episode, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us grow and inspire more people on their journeys. Thank you. Hello, Jiri. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Hey, Thomas, thank you for the invitation.
So, Jiri, for those who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Jiri. I work as a AI developer now for the company Runway. In the past, I worked as a Visual Effects Supervisor for companies like Framestore, Rodeo FX. I worked for clients like Marvel Studios, Netflix, HBO, etc. And yeah, my background is mostly advertising, episodic, and movies. And now I switched like into really like a deep AI development tools for filmmakers, video.
Yep. And before we discuss this chapter of you working in AI, can you tell us more about what is it like working in film? Maybe I know there must be like a long and exciting journey, but maybe how did you get interested in this in the first place? And briefly tell us about your experience, because as we spoke before, you work in multiple companies, multiple countries, exciting projects. So can you tell us a bit more about your journey?
Yes. So I think how I get like into visual effects, it was like probably many people. I saw the Star Wars for the first time, right? I mean, I saw the original ones. It was episode 4, and I remember I was 6 years old. I was at the hospital, and there was like, it was there on the in the TV, and I was like watching it, and then I was asking there like people how they can fly in the spaceship, and because I was like, you're a kid, so you believe that it's kind of real or it's like an attraction or whatever. And then somebody like told me there, oh, it's special effects, it's fake, right? And then I was like, I want to know more about it, right? So then, and I'm originally like you from Czech Republic, so at that time there was really like a nothing that you could find, like magazines or no internet. So it was very, very tough to find like any information, like pictures, how those things was made. Like when I found out that when I moved to US, I see what they had here at the time, I'm like, that's crazy. They had everything here, like any magazine you have in mind, it was here. But yeah, in Czech, like it was nearly impossible. So I don't remember what I got, but it was some kind of film magazine where it was like, 3, 4 pictures from like making of like before the special effect was done. And this kind of like, really inspired me probably to go that way. But I was like too young, so of course I kind of forgot about that, but still kind of had it in mind. So when I was like growing up, I was like trying to do like some paper animations, stuff like that, when you just make a photo and do stuff with the paper and just understand how animation works. And yeah, then it's like stayed with me. It became a hobby, and I really knew I want to do this in life. And yeah, that was kind of my way into it. And I started in Prague, like working in advertising agencies and advertising studios mostly. It was like kind of simple work, like you're replacing an etiquette on the shampoos, for example, for multiple markets. So you get like, I don't know, a Hungarian product, and then they ask you now change it to be Czech and Slovak, for example. So I was first doing like those things before I even touch a movie. So it was like a pretty long time before I got into it. But yeah, this was kind of the spark, how I get into visual effects.
So you didn't study like film or VFX. You went through the
No, I actually I didn't study anything because I'm not even from Prague. I'm from a city called Hradec Králové, and there was like no like a film school or anything like that, or even close to it. And it was like expensive, and you wanted to move to Prague, and it was like a kind of based on your family if they could sponsor you or not. It wasn't really my case. So yeah, I was studying like a electrician, just like to have a paper. Yeah, just to have a paper that you're not totally down, but you can at least have like some school exam paper that you finished at least like some school. So yeah, I did electrician, and but I must say, for me personally, it was useful in the way that I was like pretty bad, like manually, like a very bad. So it at least like teach me like something that I can do a few things like at home myself.
Yeah.
So at least for that was useful. But to be honest, I never ever used in my life the paper from the school. Well, oh, sorry, once at the immigration, because they wanted just like they want every document kind of you have. But otherwise, yeah, I don't have any school on that. So yeah, it was like I self-taught myself, and it was a bit difficult because, as I said, it was really not really access to the internet, no tutorials at the time. So I was buying like those books, or I was reading actually the manuals to the software. When you get like those thick books with the manual, that was kind of the only material you could find.
And do you remember back in the day what was like the software that was being used?
Oh yeah, I remember I started on like the first version of Maya. I think it was Alias Maya at the time. And there was the first time I tried like to do some 3D, and I remember that I actually read the whole Maya book and was doing like everything that was in there, as the tutorials. And this kind of shows me like, okay, 3D is probably not my favorite part, but at least I kind of was able to work in it, do some like basic stuff. And then I tried Shake, which was compositing software from Apple at the time, because somebody told me, yeah, Star Wars actually was made in Shake, the newer one. So I was like, okay, of course I want to learn Shake. So I was training Shake. It was like a mostly trying, because for that software I really didn't find any books, any tutorial, and it was 2D compositing. So I kind of find out I like more 2D compositing world as like what I would like to do. So yeah, I was mostly training that. So then I specialized like even later in compositing and like more 2D work instead of 3D.
Mhm. I wanted to say firstly that something I didn't know is that you actually studied as electrician. And if you consider your position now, I think it's just impressive. Even what you did before, like working on such impressive projects that we will discuss later on. And secondly, I think it must be really hard to imagine for people that these days you've got so many tutorials, resources, and basically everything on YouTube, like when it comes to learning the software. And the fact that you actually studied from books, I think that people just cannot imagine. So it's super cool.
Yeah, like I feel that today's everything is way easier, and I see it myself, right? I'm still like studying something you're never done. You're never you never know everything. So that, and especially, I know we will get there, but in the AI world, it's changing like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like in Visual Effects, like those softwares, there was like an update every year, which is like kind of classic timeline, right, for the software to do updates like every year. And there wasn't like much changes in that. Okay, they add like a 1, 2 features and then updated some bugs, and that was
Yep.
it. So you just like it took a day to just study what's new, and that's it. But like in AI, it's like every 2 weeks, like it's totally different. So that's like you feel you never stop learning.
Yeah, I can see it like on LinkedIn or something because I don't really have, I don't know, time or I don't follow it as much, but I follow people who post regularly about AI, and that's basically my source of information. And you can see like literally regularly breaking news. There is this update. It's from this tool and the other tool and something next. I'm like, oh my god, it's like
Oh yeah,
hard to
LinkedIn is
keep
full
up.
of that. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
hard to keep up. Yeah, and the thing is that I'm watching just most like my industry, which is like a multimedia, film, commercials, like kind of video world. But the AI is now such a broad, right? It can be for anyone, like accountants,
Yeah, yeah.
architects. Yeah,
And just to come back, because I'm pretty sure that
yeah,
many
sure.
people would be curious to know, and me too. What was like the step or like a moment when you transition from working in advertisement or your previous work to actually film industry?
Well, yeah, that was pretty tough because, when you're applying like for a film role, like to working on the movies, they usually want to see your film background. They don't care about your advertising background. And that was mostly like my problem that anytime I applied, I got constantly refused. And maybe I was applying like 4 years in a row, at any
Oh,
studio,
really?
just like
Oh,
a, yeah, yeah, yeah. It really was like a long. So, I mean, I started working when I was 18, 19, something like that. So this was the time when I actually moved to Prague and started working in the advertising. As I told you, like those kind of shampoos commercial, toilet papers commercial. But yeah, we have to start somewhere. And from there you kind of doing like this thing. So you know that this is not even really close to the film work. When you see like Jurassic Park or those big movies, you see like it's like totally high end compared to what you do with your toilet paper commercial. But then it's very hard like to get somewhere like where you learn like such a high end visual effects work. So one thing was I was trying to do like my personal project, which also was like anything special, and try to build like demo reel because the companies want to see your work. So your demo reel, so actually show the shots that you worked on. But if you don't have them, then it's pretty hard to get there. So then I try to work on more like advanced or more high end advertising, because you have like some advertising like for big brands like Nike's or Coca-Cola, Pepsi, that sometimes they're doing like a more like a better better advertising that's more close to like a movie look.
yep.
There's like a lot of 3D, which now is becoming kind of normal. So I was trying to do those. So I was, of course, like traveling between studios, and I was really like selecting the project that would actually help me to grow. And yeah, of course, I failed like many times. That, for example, they weren't happy with my work because I wasn't that skilled. But I
Mm.
know that I just the time that I spend there is enough for me to learn a bit more to be better. So you just have to like assemble like all of the skills that you can, talk with the people there, look under their hands how they work, and then you start learning like professionally more how to actually do it. And then when they fire you, which of course it happened to me as well, then you try to go somewhere else, like more like what you like, but still it was this advertising world. And like from the previous studio you got fired, you still bring with you like some better job that you did. So you still have like something better to show. So you're kind of growing. And then I start freelancing in London and Barcelona, which was great because I also found when I did this such a huge change in the people's mentality. And then I found that like the best thing I did probably in my life was to leave Czech Republic, because it was really how the people treat you. It's suddenly when I moved to, first of all, like to Barcelona, where I did like few commercials there, and then they offered me because they had the headquarters in London. They actually asked me like, could you move to London because it's easier for us, we have more work there, so if you open. So of course I said yes. So then I was going freelancing to London.
And sorry, can you name the company?
One was MPC, which doesn't exist anymore, and the second was Glassworks. Like a both really really good companies. They did like a really nice work. And they kind of, what I liked on them, that they kind of analyze you, like your skills are, where you're strong and where you're weak, kind of, and they don't judge you for that. They just like kind of like find a project that fits you the best, kinda. Not always, of course. Sometimes you get something that you struggle, but that's what you need to push yourself forward. You need to struggle and suffer to get better. But even if you fail there, they never was like, "Oh, you're like so bad, let's fire you." No, they tell you this was bad because of this. So what you need now, we will help you to fix this one, and they let you to kind of work on yourself to get better. And that's what kind of happened there. And then I came back to Czech because I was freelancing, so I wasn't like there like a full time. So of course it was like weeks or maximum month. And then I came back to Czech again, and I tried to work in Czech, which I totally hated it. I was like, I just cannot live here because I just don't like it. And suddenly I got an offer from a company that was doing a project, and they asked me like, "Oh, you actually in Europe, and do you have European passport?" I was like, "Yeah, of course. Czech Republic is in the EU." I was like, "Okay, great. We want you to go to Croatia and Slovenia for shooting for a project, and then we would love if you can go to Canada after that. That they will make me a paperwork and everything." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay." So suddenly like some breakthrough, right? And then I signed like everything, like NDAs and all of that stuff. And then I went to Croatia and I found like it was Game of Thrones. So then you're like, oh,
Was it actually in Dubrovnik?
was it in Dubrovnik? Yeah. But it was also in Slovenia because there was also the team was from Slovenia. So I was also like in Ljubljana doing, I was like doing mostly like a textures, like most like a photographies and collecting the data, doing like HDRIs for 3D artists, stuff like that. And then yeah, then I came back to I actually moved to Montreal. And it was just like a short-term contract. They just asked me like, we need just 3 months from you. And I was like, okay, whatever. It's like still like a great experience. And everything worked fine. Like they were happy. And then they offered me like, oh, you actually have another project if you would like to stay with us. And then the project was I think it was Star Wars at the time. I was like, yeah. And then like everything like starts like paying back, like all of that effort you did before, like this jumping between companies and teaching and falling, suddenly you see how it started like paying back like years later. It really took 6 years before like actually I get there. But it kind of shows me like it's very, very important to don't surrender, just like still keep going because at some point you will get there. You just need to find your way. So that's also what taught me is like you should like really listen opinions like when somebody's telling you like, oh, you shouldn't even do that, which was like very often in Czech, like I would say 90% of people was telling me like, oh, it doesn't make sense. Oh, you're not that good. You will never get there. Why would use you? They have enough like a good people there. And it kind of makes you to believe it, that you feel like, oh, they actually right. Why would I do it? Like I have pretty good place here. It's not bad. But yeah, I never was like that. So I still was like, okay, whatever, I'm going.
That was actually one of my questions I was about to ask. What was like people's reaction back in Czech Republic, like when you told them that you want to be a filmmaker or you want to work on Hollywood films, if they
Oh my
were
God, man,
supportive
like
or
I
the
can tell you
opposite?
all about that. I Anytime I said that, and I remember it started at school, right? When the teachers like asking kids like, so what do you want to do in life? And it was like, I mean, we weren't like a kids. It was like already on a like an end of elementary school where we are like 15, and then during the like at the high school where you are like around 17, 18. So you're not a kid anymore. You kind of it's more like a serious what you say, what you want to do. And of course, there was like a people who was saying like the classic professions, right? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be, I don't know, chef, stuff like that. So yeah, it's everything was fine. And then I remember I always said like, I want to work on Hollywood movies. I want to move to Hollywood, or I want to move to US. I literally every time everyone was like laughing, like I'm stupid, I'm crazy, like, and everybody was always like taking you like, oh, this guy is just like from another planet, he's a moron. It was like always like in the mean way. That the teachers usually should like a support you. I feel that's why going to school they should like at least maybe tell you like, okay, great, you want to do this, what's your plan? Or like maybe okay, you want to do art, so maybe we should more focus that you don't need to study that much like a math, let's say. Of course you need to know something to just go through the class, but maybe let you focus on, I don't know, art at school, or like maybe recommend you some solution that maybe, oh, there's like a school that you can go because that can maybe help you to get where you want to go. But instead of that, they just like laugh at you and telling you that you're kind of stupid and that your parents should think about themselves, like what they're raising. And that's like my experience. That's why I'm like, I would never let my kids, I mean my kid like to study in Czech, because yeah, probably universities could be great. I don't know. But when like now she's studying in US and it's totally different. Like whatever the kids like a field they want to do, they just helping them from like when they're like a small. Nobody's like judging you. Doesn't matter what you want to be, and really like a supporting you with like every step that you want to do. And I found it was even in Canada because like she studied like the school in Canada, and yeah, there was as well like this kind of mentality that nobody puts you down for what you think, what you want to be. And
Mhm.
that's like super important, like I feel when you grow. But I think I had like the big advantage that I never took this personally because I kind of, I don't know, built that thing that I don't really care what people think about me. So this kind of helped me, like all of the negative things kind of just like give me more and more energy just to go. So they just kind of like, like when somebody's pushing you so much at the end, you say, okay, I'm going.
Although I've never been to the US, but I heard it so many times that the mindset is so much different when it comes to
It's
like
so much different. Yeah, it's
North
very different.
America compared to Europe. Yeah.
It is very, very different. Yes, yes.
And you said like a few points before, but what we just discussed, what would be like your piece of advice or some tips for people who want to pursue such a career as well? Be ambitious, work on films like this. From your experience, what would you recommend people to, I don't know, keep in mind, to focus on, or what do you think is the most important?
That's like a very, very good question because I would recommend now learn AI as much as you can. If you're starting now, just yes, get like some basic information how the industry works, how the department works, like 3D, 2D, but you don't really need to learn it, like really go fully to AI because that's like where it goes. And there is so many people that are afraid of that. There's so many people who don't want to learn it just because of some, I don't know, some internal things they have that they're just against it, because like they just hate it and they feel like this is not art. But the thing is, your employer will not ask you if you like art or not. That's not how it works. So yes, if you work for yourself, that you're like some kind of an artist who, I don't know, drawing images and you're successful, amazing, amazing for you. But if you want to be like in this industry, like in the movies, work for the studios, I 100% recommend to go fully on AI, learn how you can utilize it. Because what's also great about it, that it really democratizes what you can do. Like, when I was like 15, like that, I'll be so happy if there is tool like we have now that you can actually do your own movie. That you write it and you just go and do it. Like, I'm now like a company like Runway that like allows you to generate stuff, but not just like generate. You can be yourself like an actor. You can take a friend who will do the kind of like the motion for you, so you can do motion capture and transfer the character into a robot or whatever you want. So you can do sci-fi. That was like just 2 years ago. It was impossible. You need always like those huge budgets. So when you've been doing something like indie, like independent, it has to be like always like extremely like a no visual effects, just like everything on camera. But now you can actually produce a movie or you can show like your idea. So that's actually amazing. Now is the best time to actually start like in a film. You kind of skip like all of those difficult steps that was there before to learn, to spend so many years to learn a software.
Yeah, I mean, I can only agree. And there have been such a big progress. For example, in past 2 years, I cannot imagine what it's going to be like in next 2 years. This like conversation is going to be outdated after 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's even really tough to think like what's gonna be in like 3 years because since now like I'm working on those tools, it's like sometimes you're just even asking like what's gonna be in next 3 months, not 3 years. That when you like see like what you already have in the hands, that's like not publicly out yet, and then you're thinking like, oh, okay, so now on this one, and I don't want to even think what's gonna be in 3 years. I'm wondering like if in 3 months, like what people's gonna do, and like then what's super interesting is like when you release like those things, like you see like what the other people's do, right? That they like show their creativity and how they use the tools that you're building. That's amazing. You see how many people like or how many people you helped with to actually get into when they can start a social media, for example, and start doing their own small series, podcast. And suddenly everything looks kind of professional. And that's amazing to see how people are using that.
It's true, and I agree. Are you struggling to stay consistent on LinkedIn? FanPost helps you create high-quality posts in minutes, so you can write faster, show up more, and stress way less. Built by creators for creators. It's the easiest way to grow your presence without burning out. Try it free at fanpost.com. And as we are just discussing that, of course, we could be talking about films for much longer, but how did you transition then from movies to AI to Runway, where you are now?
Yes, so this one was, I would say, was interesting because it was 2019, I think, and it was like way, way before the AI was like popular or like a thing.
Back then, I didn't even know what it is. Yeah.
That's totally fine because me too. I was, I was the same. I had no idea like that something like that existed, and at the time it was called machine learning, right? So you couldn't actually even Google AI. If you Google AI, it'll probably find you a sci-fi movie
Terminator.
because everything was called like a deep vision, machine learning, big data. That was like the official names of those tools. And it actually started like really like early, I don't know, but it was I have like a thinking it was already in 90s where there was like a first test of like machine learnings. Anyway, we've been working on a movie. I think it was with Vin Diesel. And we've been doing like a 3D body of him. It was for a sci-fi movie. And there was a scene like where he there's like some explosion and then he like start like revealing himself back like from those particles or those tiny nano robots or what it was. And like of course those things are CG, right? That you have like a CG character, CG face and everything. And I saw like how much time it took, it was like it's like a month of work to do like shots like that. To look everything like a real, you need to do the scan, you need to do like, the modeling, texturing, like all of that stuff. And I was always like kind of like try to think like how to speed up those things, make them like just faster, better, like kind of skip all of those boring steps. Like for me, it was boring. And then I saw, like somehow, I don't know, randomly I found like a GIF image with like somebody swapped the face of someone and said like it was machine learning. And I think it was Sylvester Stallone to Arnold Schwarzenegger or other way around, I remember. And it looked like so real. And I was like, holy moly, what's machine learning? So then I started like a Googling, right? Like a browsing. And then I found like, okay, there's some website that's called GitHub that like every developer knows. But since you're in Visual Effects, it's not really your thing. And then there was like a tons of like a codes and stuff like that. So I remember I kind of like I sit down and I was like, now I will learn like coding, like how to do it, how to build models. And I built like first, of course, I didn't build it from the ground up. I downloaded like some codes from GitHub, right? Like as a base because it takes time. And then I start tweaking it. And then I just presented it at work. Like, look, I just did a first like a face swap for a movie we're doing. And yeah, the resolution was the 256 by 256 pixels. So, of course, everybody was like, yeah, it's great, but what are we gonna do with that? It's just like it's just like extremely low res. And I was like, no, 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 but it's like see the future in it. Now it's 256 pixels, but maybe I don't know, I can play with it more and I will do maybe double. Yeah, 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 whatever, right? I was like, okay, I'll listen to that. I'm going home and I will just make it like triple, at least to like 1000 pixels. And I had like one producer who saw it as well, and he was kind of like, interesting. He didn't like say like it's useless. He was kind of the only one who didn't say it's useless. And then he came to me and he was like, "Hey, I got contacted by a guy. He's a singer. He's called himself The Weeknd, and he wants to do like avatar of himself that will be talking with people through Spotify because they have some deal with Spotify." And I was like, man, I just literally just tried to face swap myself with someone else. And now you want me to build it out? I have no idea how to do it. It was like, oh, too bad. I just signed a contract. We have 3 weeks to do it. And I was like, now I'm really fucked because
Oh,
like I had no idea. I didn't know really coding, right? I was like playing with that few months. And then the thing was that like, when you opened his album on Spotify, he appeared there and say like, "Hey Thomas, thanks that you listening to me." So even like I call you your name and like those things, and I was like, I have no idea how those things like even works. Anyway, I was kind of stressed, which I'm not really stressed, almost never, but this time I was. And I started like to building it. Of course, like the first prototype was like crap, low res, and like it was barely looking like him. But I was like, I keep going, and like the second week, I somehow like cracked the formula, like how to make it look real. And then I presented to them like his team, and they were like, "Oh, it's actually great, but there's two things we don't like. One thing is his teeth, and the second thing is his shoulders." I was like, "Okay, what's wrong with his teeth?" And they were like, he just like he just like has like a some tweaks in his like appearance because I don't know this guy like looked every year kind of like a different image, so you want to like a change it. I was like, okay, so it's just like an image change, like how it looks like. Okay, so I just like I retrained everything and remade that, like, and I also did like a script that was like a fixing also the whole body. So suddenly you could like move. I couldn't do like a really walking, while I can do like when you're standing, and moving like this. It worked pretty well. So we finished it, and then I feel that we finished like the first ever AI avatar, and it was released on Spotify. It was super popular. It won like I think 6 Cannes Lions and like tons of awards we got for that.
And was it work only by yourself, or did you work with anyone else on it?
No, it was just me. That's why I was so stressed because like
Yeah, I
and like
can
even
imagine.
at no time, like for even experiments, I was like, I need to test it first, like how to even do it, and then
And it's not just for some random person, it's for the weekend, right?
kind of, yeah, you will be like, okay, if it fails, like whatever. But they've been kind of like also like, if it fails, like they didn't have like a high expectation because nobody kind of did that before at the time. So it was just like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, we tried. But it worked, and it was like extremely popular. And since that time, I was like, maybe I should really refocus. And then also, of course, those guys I was showing them those 256 pixels videos, been like, So how you did it? Because we delivered like suddenly it was I think 720p like quality, which was perfect for for app. It's great. You don't need bigger than that. And then I got not offer, but like an ask from Marvel. I guess they saw it, they're doing a movie and they would like to try it like on the movie. And then I was like, first like I saying, look, the movie, it's like it's a 4K data linear. The one what I was doing is like Rec 709, like kind of something that you shoot on your phone quality. And this one is like a cinematic release, and everything is like extremely, the quality is like somewhere else. It's like the cinematic one. And they'd be like, no, no, it's okay, just try it. If it doesn't work, we'll just go the classic approach, right? The 3D pipeline and everything. So I actually asked them, okay, so let's make it fast. Send me the hardest shot that you have, close up when maybe the person's touching himself. So I at least like we'll figure it out. Like because if you give me easy one and it's success, and then you do it and you fail on the other ones, it's bad. So I was like, give me the hardest one. At least we will see right away if it works. And then I kind of figured it out like pretty fast, like even the quality. So I was able to deliver like 4K data in linear color space, so which means it was like in the cinematic color space. Just I don't know how to really explain it, but it's like the workflow that you're using when you work on like a visual effects projects. You're using there are like a different color spaces and stuff like that. Like when you're shooting, let's say on the film camera, usually you get like a logarithmic data, which are like those gray data, but then you convert it into linear. So it's just like a more how you work with the curve that's like controlling the gamma of the gamma curve. So like linear is linear curve. So it's easy to work. It's like easy math because 1 plus 1 is 2, right? But if you work in like the different color spaces, then 1 plus 1 is not 2. So it's hard to work with. It is hard to explain. But anyway, it's not important. but it's always like a big deal for the client. They always want to deliver like in this kind of format and the quality and everything. So that was like the biggest struggle because, at the time the machine learning wasn't built for anything. It was just really everything was extremely experimental. And then at the end, I delivered for them like 2 episodics and 1 movie for Marvel. And
Sorry, was it Shang-Chi? Or can you say which one was it?
it was Shang-Chi, was WandaVision, Loki.
See, I remember I went to cinema
Yeah.
to watch Shang-Chi back in Czech Republic. I would never expect to discuss it now with you. It's pretty cool.
It was probably my most favorite project ever. Like they've been like so nice. I remember there was like so many people complaining about to do the work for them because there was a lot of overtimes, I remember. And I was like, I actually almost never did an overtime. I was like, everybody was nice to me. We had like a really nice relationship with the clients, with the director, with everybody. And, they really just like put kind of a trust like in me that like, yeah, we believe you can do it because we like the hardest shot, it just worked. And of course, there was some struggle. It wasn't like smooth, like, oh, suddenly everything was great. No, there was like a suddenly shot that you feel like, oh, this one will be easy. And then it like became a nightmare because you couldn't figure it out. Like, let's say some difficulties in those. But yeah, of course, it's a process. So I finished that. I was also the only one on those type of shots because at the time it was like hard to find someone who was doing any like a machine learning because it was too early. Or you had like a developers or like a tech, but those people are in like Nvidia and Microsoft and that, so it's hard to even find them. Which today is like way easier. And yeah, so I deliver like those projects, and just like again like it confirmed me I really should stay in the space, like in AI. And then it started like still like growing. Like suddenly there was the boom. I don't know, 2022 probably. Like I remember I was using even Runway like before they even did like what they're doing now. They remember at the time they had like an app that you can install and you can like run models from GitHub. And to me, it was like amazing because I was like, oh, that's actually great because I don't have to always like download everything, prepare the script, just test it out if it even works. I could do it through their app. So it was great. And then suddenly the app disappeared and they launched, I think it was Gen 1 at the time, the video model, and they kind of started it. So I was like really looking like very long time at that company, like what they do. I really like their vision. And I didn't really think that I would work there because I didn't think they would be like interested like in my skills because they've been more like tech, right? They're like developing the tool and it's actually like the research. But more I was like in it, then I moved again back to advertising, and it was mostly because advertising is more like willing to use those AI tools. It's like it's just easier. You know what I mean? It's like in the movies, it's like so picky, like for the quality and everything, which advertising is like easier. So I moved back to advertising, and then so I kind of been doing like a 80% advertising, 20% episodic, and sometimes I help like on movies, rarely. I think the last I did was Snow White, and that I just did like three shots. So you usually don't even get credited like if you do just like 2 3 weeks on that. There's like also I mean to get credited in the movie, like to be in the credits, they have always like some rules. So for example, you need to work at least a month. So if you work let's say 3 weeks, they don't put you to the credits. Yeah, so I moved to advertising, did this episodic as well, sometimes tiny bit of movies. And I was more like a developing actually the machine learning pipeline for advertising and doing more experimental work, like how we can make things faster, also cheaper, like for the clients, because the demands like was getting higher in a way on the cost. Like anytime you put CG into the commercial, it's like the cost like grows up rapidly, and that was usually the problem, right? Because you still need to stay competitive with the others. So I was looking for like workflows, how we can like make those things like a hybrid. So, let's say the 3D artist is like 3 times faster with those tools. So I was building like setups for that. It was like car brands and yeah, like kind of anything you can imagine from the advertising world, from cans. I think I can get some toilet paper commercial actually. I will never get rid of those toilet paper commercials. What it's like.
I'm sure it will come again at some point.
Oh, of course. And yes, I was like a developing pipelines for that, and I found I was slowly like becoming more like a researcher than artist. You more like a building, developing, but just still like staying within the field. And then I think that was the time where I feel like, okay, now I can actually transition into the company like Runway, and that I can bring actually something that they could use, that they can benefit like of my skills. So we somehow like get in touch with the CEO of Runway, and of course I did like a test for them. It wasn't like a straightforward, it was like, okay, come here. No, it was like you still have to show like that you actually can do what you said that you can do. And yeah, we kind of feel that we really like enjoy to work together, that it worked. And then yeah, they asked me like if I would like to join full time, and I was thinking like, yeah, that's anyway what I'm doing, and it would be actually great to be like in the company who's doing this like 100%, not just like before. I was like 50-50, kind of like 50 research, 50 like still do the classic work, because company needs to still do the actual work, not just some research. But this one was just like, okay, come and let's just develop those things like the best as we can. And yeah, it was like, sure, let's do it. And now I'm there, and it's really great because I also like I learned a lot, and suddenly you see like it's more like a again difference in the mindset, in the mentality, and I kind of like more this startup thinking, more like we have to sprint, we have to rush, we just have to do everything like yesterday was late. I know like advertisings are like that, but this is like a very, very different, because you're actually building something that like people use, that like the huge community use. And that's amazing. And then you're actually like changing the world.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to AI field, because as we discussed before, it changes so quickly.
Exactly. So you really like see like how you shaping like things that we do like something, then we release, and then you see like the internet like talking about it, and people like, oh, like I always like at those comments like Hollywood is dead, right? It's like the classic thing when we release something.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just like very nice to watch.
yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say if you can tell us more like about your specific position and kind of introduce like what's your daily work like. I assume that it probably differs, or you cannot generalize like every day is the same, but just to get an idea, what does your day look like at work?
Yeah, that's what I kind of like, that that the everyday is actually not the same at all. And this is the first time kind of in my life, career ones, that the things are not the same at work. Like I know when you're working on the movies, every movie is different, but at the end it's the same. Like you're still doing the same kind of thing. But this one, so my position is I'm creative director. I'm doing like a research. So what that means is I'm creating like the video content for Runway. I'm also like the AI VFX architect. So I'm also building like the pipeline, like how actually the film studios can use the tool to building workflows for them. So, you have some specific needs. I don't know, you need like a crowd tool, for example. So I try to build like the crowd tool like within the AI with our like a Runway tools that we have. So the studio suddenly can just like select the spot and say, I want to have these kinds of people there, and I want millions of them. And you get it in like 30 seconds instead of, weeks. Of course, it still need like a lot of research, but my work is mostly there to finding the workflows, making it all the time better and better, because as I said, it's changing like almost every 2 weeks. There's like a big push. So my thing is still, still pushing those tools like as further as possible. And yeah, that's mostly it. And why it's like a very different, it's like, as you can see on the internet, when like in the AI world, like the tools are every few weeks new or different, and then suddenly the approach is a bit different. So that's why like I would say the work is never the same, because the tool that you're doing, it's always a bit different. Sometimes you're doing like what we did recently was the act 2, that you can use yourself as a driver for your like a generated character or animated character,
Yeah.
and you're using your face, your body, and then you're working on this tool, and suddenly before, like when we rebuilding like the Gen 4 model, so you're trying to build like the workflows within this model, and it's a totally different thing. And then you're going like another thing that's like totally different. So that's like what's very, very, very interesting about that you kind of see like how everything's changing so fast and that you're part of it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and like the stuff that is coming and the progress, it must be like super exciting, I agree. And as you mentioned, like the stuff that you work on there, and also something that I wanted to ask you because, of course, we cannot miss this topic, our favorite platform, LinkedIn. I saw that sometimes you share some content on LinkedIn. I don't know how you do it, but I saw you had some like super popular posts with like engagement over 1,000. How did you do
Yeah.
that? How did that happen?
Well, to be honest, I don't know because if I'm somewhere like extremely bad, it's like a social media. I don't understand that at all. So I don't know if you said you tried to just Google me and then you found out I have nothing. Just but LinkedIn. I like why I have LinkedIn is just because it works great as a CV, right? It's like your CV page with your profile that if anyone is interested in you or in your experience, then you just copy paste the LinkedIn. It's like kind of industry standard for recruiters, I feel. And it's just for me like easy to exactly to keep like your career progress. So if anyone's interested, I just share the LinkedIn. You wouldn't share Instagram with anyone like recruiting wise, right? Or like Facebook or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't because everybody's asking you for resume and those kinds of things, which I feel that's what you have on LinkedIn. So
Mm.
so yeah, I always had like LinkedIn like I don't know when I started it, but long time ago. I remember the time when I was applying like to those film companies and I got always rejected. So it's probably, I don't know, could be 15 years maybe I have a LinkedIn, if it even exists that long.
Yeah.
So very long time. And it kind of became my only like a social media. So I was like, oh, it'll be nice to post it somewhere. Oh, I actually have a LinkedIn. I can try. And I just posted it there. And then, yeah, then you get like a thousands of people interested. And I remember I posted it and some other day I was just like, I had like a more than 700 messages. And I was like, oh,
Oh.
wow, what am I supposed to do with that? I never received so many messages. I cannot even read that if I don't spend like, like a week on that. And then I'm like, oh, it's like, it's sad that I cannot at least like answer those people because they sent the nice messages, right? And I'm really not like a social media person. I really don't know why it happened. I think just because maybe it was interesting and I'm trying to do things like at my work.
Jiri, before we finish, I have just a few lighter questions. So, can you tell us what is it that you like to do in your free time, or what are some of your hobbies?
Well, I don't have much free time, but what I do is I'm mostly spending time with the family, especially with my kid and wife. I'm sure they would still complain that it's not enough, that I'm more working than spending time with them. So I think if you ask them, you'll probably hear the exact opposite answer. But yeah, my thing is that even if I have like some more free time, I'm still working on some other like a personal projects. I think I'm like a really like a workaholic person, but I guess it's just because I love what I do and it's really like my hobby as well. So if I'm not working, I'm working on something else like for myself or like try to push like some other things that we don't do. So yeah, I think I just cannot stop really working because it's just what I love to do. But yeah, otherwise of course I'm going like for swimming, running, gym. So like yeah, still keeping at least in shape. So I can move when I'm a bit older.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like yeah, we try like to more now to travel like in US to like just see more. So, but yeah, there is not much of a free time.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And when it comes to reading, do you read books? And if so, have
Yes,
any?
yes, I
Did you
do.
get any recommendations or some books that have been impactful to you?
Well, I really enjoyed. I read that they also preparing a movie, that Hail Mary. It's a really good book. It's from the guy who wrote Martian. I really enjoyed that. I feel it's my most favorite book from him. I read all of them that he wrote, but Hail Mary is really good. Then I try to read I just forgot the name of the author, but she wrote that TV series, the Murder Bot. It was a TV series just made on Apple.
I
So I
don't
read
know
like
read it, but I read about it recently. Yeah.
so those ones are pretty good, but I wasn't like so excited, but it was okay. I liked Ready Player One, Ready Player Two. Those are pretty good books. So yeah, I mostly like I read like sci-fi and I really like the dark comedies. So I of course I like The Boys, but which is comics, it's not actually a book. But
Yeah.
that's I would say my favorite.
And when it comes to films, I assume that there will be a long list, but maybe outside of Star Wars, what are your favorite ones?
Oh, outside of Star Wars, I actually really like the TV series The Boys as well.
Mm.
So that's like something I love. But my one of the my most favorite is like the old Mortal Kombat. I played like those games like on the from I think 91 or something. It's like like on arcade machines, and then there was in 95 or 96, I think 95, there was a movie from I think Anderson, the director is the name. So yeah, I really like the Mortal Kombat, and now they're doing like the second one. So that's my favorite kind of thing. It's like a real like a B B thing, but of course I love movies like Interstellar and everything from Nolan. But yeah, I would say I also don't have like much time to watch movies. It's just like too long to spend like 2.5 hours to watch something. So I'm now like to be honest, I prefer more like those short TV series which are like up to 30 minutes. So I watch like maybe an episode a day. For example, when I just commuting because it's like a cool that I can take a ferry here, so I'm like on the boat going to the office
Mm.
and it's like 20 minutes ride if I go like Midtown New York. And then I have like a time to watch something. But usually sometimes I just like look out from the boat and just looking around, listen to water. It's like more satisfying because like when you're working on that, like you see like the screen like all the time. You're looking into the screen all the time. You just feel like you wanna unplug yourself. Just do not watch anything.
Yeah. And Iri, before we finish, can you summarize or mention where people can find you and follow you? I assume that it's going to be LinkedIn only, but maybe there are any other links.
It's LinkedIn only because I really don't use anything else. LinkedIn and email. And usually like in US, like everybody's using the like a iMessage. So I'm usually on that or yeah, LinkedIn is my only social media. Like, you can also find me on Instagram, but I don't use that. I just using it for the cooking recipes to
Yeah,
watch. So I just made an account so I can actually access them and save them into like a favorite or how is it there.
yeah. But I'm pretty sure that you become or you maybe get over time more active on LinkedIn. So I encourage people to.
I'm pretty active there. I mean, I'm mostly like a watching. The thing is, I'm not like the guy like who will post like every day something, even if I have like something to post. I just feel like, why would I do that? Who's even interested in that? I'm more thinking like that. I know like usually people would post whatever, but I'm just like, I just don't like a spamming. So if I'm posting something, it just mean like, oh, I think this one could be cool. Just maybe someone can maybe just get inspired by that.
Quality over quantity.
I guess so, yeah. In this way, yes.
But I think when people visit your profile and they see the engagement that you've got on your posts, they will see the quality.
I mean, I'm trying. I'm trying. It's hard to keep up because like you always have to do something better than before, right? Or at least that's always like me trying to always do something better, and then you do something and then it's not better.
Need to be careful to set the bar too high.
Yeah, but that's what we do. We try like to be like the highest possible and keep it there and still go faster and faster and better. So yeah, it's like a race, it's like in the head, kind of like try to be perfect all the time. But I really like, as I said before, that startup kind of mentality where you have to sprint like all the time. That's great. It's pushing you really forward. You don't really have time like to think. You just do it. That's what's amazing about that. Usually, because even sometimes before, like when you have like a too much like a free time, you spend it more like a thinking, and then you realize like maybe this is not that good. Instead of now, it's like, oh, just do it, and if it's just not good, then it's just not good. It's fine. Just do another one and another one. So then you're learning like way faster, and you're iterating faster.
Yeah.
So you have like a answer for your thoughts that you're thinking, is it good or not? Yes, you can look at it and, oh, okay, it was a bad idea. Good. But it's also good for, I like to see also like a failures, because it's failures that pushing you forward, not the successful things. Success is just like, it's fine, but the failures that you have, that's pushing you like to make it better, to fix things and to work more. So that's also why it's important to share sometimes even the failures, because it's great when you share the successful videos, and people are like, oh, wow, it's amazing. It actually worked. But I like to show like the case that it actually doesn't work, where there's like a lot of space to improve that. So maybe the others get inspired actually. Oh, I have somebody else has like a great idea how to make it way better. And it's great, to see that other people adding like a more skills into, yeah.
I like it and I agree, because those people who share failures or when something didn't work out always stand out to me, because you can see, for example, on social media or LinkedIn that everyone shares successes when something goes okay, but as we know, it's not always like that. There's even negative side and more behind the scenes that people don't really know. So I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And that's important, because sometimes, you just want to do something like a project, and then you have like in mind, like, okay, I will use this and that tool for that because I feel it's great. I saw so many demos that look great. But it's great, like when you see the demo that doesn't work, it can kind of just give you an idea like, oh, okay, it's not that straightforward. I have to think more how to improve this part of my project, or maybe use another tool for that, because I saw the failures, or it gives me ideas what to fix. So that's why I like to see them as well.
I agree, and I like it. I think it is the perfect note to finish with. I apologize for a bit of technical difficulties with
That's
in the
okay.
I really enjoyed it. I think that when it comes to films, we could be talking for much longer, and when it comes to I think it's the same. And we haven't discussed much LinkedIn in the end, but of course we can do sequel anytime in the future. So I just want to say a big thank you. I really enjoyed it. I think you've got a great mindset, great stuff that you are working on. So I'll be following, supporting, and thank you very much for joining.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas. It was great. So thanks for the invitation. And yeah, I hope it was helpful, that I said something that make a bit sense. So yeah, thank you very much. It was great.
Thanks for listening to Produced by with Tomen. Check the show notes for all the links, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your feedback. Speak soon.